in 2021, and also mentioned about certain factors that might change in the near future, which might affect my projection in the coming years. Before I do anything, I would like to make some disclaimer. The information presented in this presentation represent only my own opinion and my thought. It is not representing the view of Gibson Center, nor the company that I'm affiliated to. It is only for your general information and do not act as any legal consequence and advice for your investment. First of all, we would like to talk about what is the original forecast in 2020. When pandemic gathered speed in the first quarter, there are a lot of forecasts what will happen in the next 6 to 9 months. The first forecast is that there will be a rapid drop of economic activities in the second quarter. Starting from February and March, in which the lockdown start to happen, you will see that the rapid downturn of economy has happened. The second thing is that following the model of SARS in 2003, people thought that with the temperature in the summer went up, the COVID-19 will go away. Following the model of SARS, you will see that because Northern Hemisphere is most populated, therefore when the summertime of Northern Hemisphere comes in, people said that the virus will go away in no time. And then afterwards, because people accumulated the purchasing power and has some saving, then people start to forecast that there will be a resurgence of economic activities in the third quarter. And because people are homebound for several months, people thought that international travel and cross-border activities will go up soon after the third quarter. In fact, a lot of people predicted that the last week of summer holiday and in September and October of 2020, you will see a lot of traveling around, okay? The fifth forecast is that they feel that because the manufacturing activities in the first quarter and second quarter has gone down quickly, therefore there will be some shortfall in the inventory. As a result, the order will come in and then the manufacturing activities will go up in the fourth quarter. Of course, a lot of country, the government worry about the pandemic. Therefore, they will try to cut the interest rate, do a lot of quantitative easing, which is QE, and also print out money to jumpstart the economy. The last prediction was that with the pandemic, people thought that there will be a lot of subsidy and fundraising from the government, as well as there will be a lot of investment interest from venture capital to provide some new research or to make those ideas become true in the vaccine. Therefore, people think that the vaccine will come out within the 12 to 18 months. In fact, those investments from the central government as well as from the venture capital make this happen faster than before. Although Donald Trump predicted that in the second quarter of last year, that vaccination will come in before the year end. A lot of people thought that he's bluffing, and he talked that just because of he's going for election. Then we will compare what actually has happened in 2020. Of course, the economy did fall in the second quarter. In fact, the economy fell by 20 to 30% in most countries. And in fact, the whole year around, the worldwide GDP went down by 5 to 10%. And for Canada alone, we went down by around 5% because of that. However, the second prediction was wrong. Pandemic did not disappear in the late summer. It only flattened out. In fact, we found out that this virus survived much better in than SARS. And also, there is a lot of asymptomatic patients which spread the virus before the symptom came in. Therefore, the spreading power or the infection rate of COVID-19 is much higher than the SARS situation. The third one is that Because of the resurgence of the COVID-19 in the third and fourth quarter, it caused a double dip in the economic activities from September to December last year. And also, there are limited international supply as travel throughout 2020. And in fact, there are a lot of restrictive inter-provincial travel, even in Canada itself. Some of the country and some area which experience better than others because they have controlled the virus better, created some travel bubble. For example, like New Zealand and Australia, they allow their citizens to travel between these two countries. For us, for example, like the Atlantic province, because they control the virus better than the other province, therefore the Atlantic province actually form a travel bubble that they allow the people to travel around those three provinces. But in other provinces like Quebec, Ontario, and BC, they discourage other provincial residents to go to their province to avoid the importing of the virus. The next one is that the manufacturing activities did not jumpstart at all. The manufacturing activities only concentrate in the basic need of the society, like the food producing activities and some of the medical supply activity has gone up. Other than that, most of the manufacturing activities did not resurge in the year 2020. And well, the sixth prediction is true that the central bank has cut the interest rate to zero. Actually, most of the central bank cut the interest rate to a level whereby they cannot cut anymore. And that creates another problem, okay? Then the effect of cutting interest rate created a housing boom in the second to fourth quarter of 2020. Then you can see a lot of government subsidy. If you compare the subsidy from the US vis-a-vis the Canada government, you will see that US government tend to provide some helicopter cash to every US citizens, while the Canadian government try to help out the employment of the Canadian citizen. Therefore, they encourage the small corporate to survive during this pandemic. As a result, they try to keep the employment as well as the small corporate survive, and they believe that when the economy start to turn around, then when the infrastructure is still intact, we can recover quickly. Therefore, there are two different approaches of the government subsidy between US and Canada. And then you will see that because of the subsidy from the government, the leaders trying to paint a picture that they are a caring government. Therefore, a lot of provincial leaders utilize this opportunity and try to call for election. Therefore, you will see that British Columbia, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, the provincial leaders there call the early election. At the same time, the people do not want any more surprises during pandemic. Therefore, they kind of offer the existing government to remain in the office. At the same time, before people would not like the government to overspend, but during this pandemic, no one complained the government subsidy at all. Therefore, the existing or the official government at that time is very easy to be re-elected. However, it's very different in the situation in the south of the border. Trump lost the election because US tend to leave the power to individual states to control the pandemic. And a lot of states think that they prefer the economy to be upflow instead of controlling in a more restrictive way for the pandemic. And because of the uprise of the cases in pandemic and also the mortality rate of the pandemic, it caused Trump to lose the election. A lot of people think that if Pfizer announced the success in the vaccine 1 week earlier, which is before the election was taking place, Trump might have won the election. And also, US and Europe, as well as North America, are considered to be a more liberal society. Therefore, they do not control any people to spread out the wrong rumor on the pandemic. Therefore, people tend to be more relaxed, and that's the reason why the pandemic is more serious in North America and Europe. At the same time, because a lot of people travel between the state in US as well as in Europe, people travel from one country to the other country. The importing of those virus from one to other country tend to make the pandemic uncontrollable in North America and Europe, and they remain as the two areas which carry the most cases during this pandemic. Vaccine did develop and approve in December 2020. So far, there are three major vaccines which has been approved. One is from Pfizer, one is from Moderna, and one is from Oxford AstraZeneca, which are coming from UK and US and Germany. Talking about the effect of the COVID-19 in 2020, the following graph is to show how the economy are doing. You will see that from February to April, there is a quick drop of the economy, and most of the economy dropped by 30 to 40% during those 2 months. Then, when the pandemic starts to ease off, some countries tend to benefit, and most of the activities has gone back up to the pre-February level. Countries like US and Germany, in which the manufacturing are recovering much better, tend to even exceed what the manufacturing level before the pandemic. Countries like France, which rely on tourism and service industry and luxury goods, tend to be lag behind, and then they are negative at the end of December compared to what they used to have in the early 2020. And also, the pandemic only flattened out. If you look at the US graph, you will see that the cases has dropped gradually from July to September, but the case has resurged again in the third to fourth quarter of the year. Because of better treatment for the patient, therefore hospitalization was not so serious, and the hospitalization number has been kind of growing slower than the daily cases in US as well as in Canada. About the spending pattern in Canada, you will see that for the recovering from the second quarter to third quarter, the major industry which was benefited from this short-term recovery are those four provinces manufacturing food like Manitoba, and those major provinces who are mainly on manufacturing like Quebec. Ontario is more on services. Therefore, the recovery is less significant compared to the other provinces. In fact, in the fourth quarter, our spending activities has gone down because of the renewed lockdown in the province. Then I also talk about the accessibility of vaccine by different countries. You will see that Canada is the champion. Our government has ordered more vaccine per person than what we need. On average, we are close to 10 doses per person. Of course, the order might not materialize, but given the current level that we have placed the order to, there should be enough vaccine per person for the whole country. The second and third country are Australia and UK, whereby they have ordered more than 5 doses per person. And mind you, the three major vaccine producing countries are UK, Germany, and US. Therefore, they should not have any supply problem for the vaccine. But for the other country, you will see that they did not kind of be so up to date compared to other countries. Another thing about Japan, although they have placed enough order, but the government has not approved the vaccination yet. They are the slowest country in the developed country that has not approved the vaccine compared to even like India or Mexico. Well, another situation happened in the world is about China. China has experienced some lockdown from January to early March, and they found out that the virus has kind of disappeared after March. Therefore, they started to manufacture quickly. Because other countries suffer from the pandemic, therefore, other countries tend to ask China to supply the medical supply and other basic need to their country. As a result, China's shares of economy grew from 70% to 19% in 2021. People originally forecast that because of the trade conflict between US and Canada, the China share of economy should be gone down in 2019 and 2020. But because of this pandemic, whereby China is a country which was better positioned during this pandemic, it caused them to have 4% more of the share of economy around the world compared to a situation without the pandemic. Then I would like to talk about the potential policy shift under the president to be elected in US. Joe Biden is a diplomat by training. Therefore, they tend to adopt a much more friendly approach with other countries. Joe Biden will rejoin some of the multilateral treaty with the other country. For example, they will going to rejoin those climate agreement in Paris, rejoin the World Health Organization. I think he will also adopt a much more friendly approach with Europe, and he's going to cut down some of the tariffs, which was introduced in the Trump administration. In the China situation, I think he will adopt a more friendly approach with China, and I think he will kind of focus on the human rights as well as the environmental issue with China, rather than the imbalanced policy, as well as the US come first policy adopted by the Trump administration. Personally, I think that Joe Biden will not make his China policy clear. Joe Biden feels that by making his policy more wishy-washy and unclear, it would cause China to make more concession in the trade policy and will send more olive branch to US to recover the diplomatic relationship, which went to the low point between Trump and the China administration. Therefore, Joe will try to remain obscure as possible to gain the maximum benefit from China. Talking about the foreign investment, a lot of people know that in order to start the economy again, you need some foreign investment. And for foreign investment also come with the corporate tax rate, which was introduced by the government. Before 2016, you will see that the corporate rate in Canada actually is lower than the US. US at that time was 28% corporate rate, vis-a-vis the 27% in the Canada. But you can see that the foreign investment at the same time in Canada is not as good as in US. It was due to the fact that there's less innovation in Canada. And also US people tend to be really willing to take more risks. And there are more venture capital in US than Canada. And after 2016, Donald Trump has cut down the corporate rate to 21%. Therefore, the corporate rate in US tend to be more attractive. With the coming in the office of Joe Biden, people think that Joe is going to increase the corporate rate back to 28%, but people think that the attraction of US foreign investment is still ahead of Canada. With respect to the female employment in Canada, you know that the Canada is more relying on the service industry. For example, like education and medical services. And therefore, the female staff in those industries was benefiting in Canada than US. Therefore, the female employment in Canada has recovered faster than US female employee at the same time. About the housing affordability, you will see that the housing affordability has dropped steadily from the year 2012 to 2018. And then Canada introduced the tax for foreign or non-resident tax, therefore make the affordability gone up in the past 2 years. And because of the cutting down of the interest rate, therefore the affordability also went up towards the early part of 2020. However, the saving of interest costs was offset by a huge rise of the housing price. Therefore, during the year of 2020, the housing affordability has dropped by 15% in Canada. Then a lot of people will ask why the housing boom and housing price has gone up in Canada so rapidly in the last year. Of course, the first factor is because of the low mortgage rate. The low mortgage rate allow the investor to pay for a higher price in the housing. Second thing is about that when the pandemic first started, they locked down all the construction activities. Therefore, a lot of people thought that the housing completion rate in the year 2020 would be lower than before. Because of shortage in supply, people thought that they need to buy the house earlier. Next major factor is about the high net worth individuals. You know that housing market is very different from the other economy and other market. Out of the general public, according to statistics, only 1% of the public will be interested in buying houses. Therefore, if the top 1% high net worth individual maintain their salary, it is enough to support the housing market. In fact, in the pandemic situation, the high net worth individual has least affected by the pandemic. Working from home do not reduce their salary. In fact, working from home make them to have more requirement of the space. The fourth factor is that because they work from home, therefore they have saved up a lot of the entertainment expenses. The daily travel expenses has gone down. They also do not have any more foreign travel. As a result, they have more disposable income during the same period of time. On the other hand, because working from home and study from home of their children make them need more personal space. Take a simple example. During the daytime before, the whole house might be very empty. There's no one staying in that house. Therefore, a smaller space has no problem with the people. But when all the people are either working from home or studying from home, 4 to 5 individuals need their own space in the daytime. Therefore, I think the house which they want to enjoy in require a bigger space. As a result, they have to move to a bigger house in a suburban area, which they can afford. And also, pandemic tend to be more serious in the downtown core area. Area like downtown Toronto, downtown Montreal, and downtown Vancouver tend to have more cases of coronavirus. Therefore, people tend to move out from downtown core to avoid those pandemic. The last factor is that you know that downtown used to have more maintenance costs, for example, like food costs, transportation, as well as some entertainment will be more expensive in downtown area. Therefore, cause people to move out from downtown to maintain a more saving rate. As a result of this movement, people are looking for more space. You will see that there will be a bifurcation of housing price in the past years. Area with the highest kind of housing price, like Fraser Valley in British Columbia, enjoy a very handsome growth in the detached house. Big city like Toronto, Vancouver, the detached house has gone down quickly in the past 12 months, compared to a very flat movement for the condo market. In fact, a lot of downtown condo in Toronto has gone down in price because of the high vacancy rate. Well, the other change in the economy during the pandemic is the heavy digitalization of the economy. As you know, during the pandemic, people are working from home. Therefore, information has to travel through the computer internet platform. Therefore, digitalization becomes the key part of the industry. Digitalization also causes more standardized product because the product need to be standardized and move quickly and easily. As a result, they can achieve a better economy of scales in their production and keep their costs down. Therefore, digitalization also affects the manufacturing industry. At the same time, the new technology on IT also helped up the economy. 5G has expedited the transmission rate and also the complexity of transmission during the same period of time. As a result, you will see that a lot of industry changed their course of operation in light of this new digital age. At the same time, because a lot of people are buying things through internet, therefore they also need the digitalization of the transfer, and they want to track the package online to make sure that they can receive the merchandise on time. The next few slides are something which is for the data in the Canadian economy. I leave the list everyone to read it by yourself. Then in terms of the GDP performance, US still maintain as the biggest economy in the world. They still have around 20 to 25% of the worldwide GDP. China become a very high second position. Their percentage of GDP around the world has gone up to 15%. And then Japan remain as a distant third because their aged population as well as the innovation rate is much slower than in US and in Canada. Therefore, they are only enjoying 6% of the worldwide GDP. Then it followed by Germany, UK, and France, whereby they only occupy around 5 to 3% of the worldwide GDP. One thing is that our country, Canada, still maintain as the 10th biggest GDP in the world. Then a lot of people will forecast what will happen in the next 10 years. People thought that the China will bypass US in 2028. Before pandemic, people forecast that China will only overtake US by 2032. Because of the disparity on the economic growth in China vis-a-vis US, people think that the time for surpassing US will come 4 years earlier than previously forecast. Because people predicted China will grow by 4 to 5% in the next 10 years, whereas US growth rate will be as low as 1 to 2%. Then Japan will become a distant third after China and US, and their growth rate might be taken up by the other country. UK, because of Brexit, they will enjoy more autonomy in their fiscal policy, and also they do not need to observe very stringent environmental protection created by EU country. Therefore, people will think that the UK economy will be much more vibrant in the next few years. They will surpass Germany by the year 2030. India is the main beneficiary country in this pandemic, as a lot of people do not want to rely on China for their sourcing. Therefore, a lot of company has also moved some of their production to India. And India is a very densely populated country, and the human resources is huge. Therefore, with the young country and also with the technology, people expect India will surpass Japan in the next 10 years. And unfortunately, I must have to predict that Canada will drop out from the top 10 and replaced by South Korea in the next 10 years. But when we compare to the GDP per capita, fortunately, Canada is still number 3 in the world. And the first one, of course, is US, which maintain a lead around the world per person. And Japan is the second country which enjoy the highest GDP per person, followed by Canada, and then Germany, UK, and France. We do expect that the UK will surpass Germany in the near future. Then I would like to talk about the economic reality in December 2020. We will see that, yes, the interest rate is becoming extraordinarily low in December 2020. And there are massive government debt accumulated with various countries. I will have a separate slide for this to talk about what's the impact of government debt to the economy as a whole in the next few years. Higher commodity price is a major reality in December 2020. Everyone remember that oil price went down to negative in March 2020. However, oil price tend to go back up again. It's now more than $50 per barrel in the late December 2020. Other than oil, you will find that all other commodity price has gone up. Things like agricultural product, steel, coal, basic metal commodity has all went up by between 10 to 30%. Therefore, it will create a huge impact on the possible inflation in 2021 and afterwards. Next one is about the vaccination. The logistic problem on distributing the vaccination has taken a longer while for people to get vaccination. Countries like Canada, after vaccination, only 1% of our population has the vaccination as of this week. Because of the logistic problem, a lot of countries actually cannot commence the vaccination in the near future. I have a separate slide about vaccination. The next reality is that there is a dying out of certain traditional industry. Things like traveling, airline, cruise, and some traditional product will be falling out of favor. The next one will be that the poor country will get poorer. Poor countries do not have any financial muscle to deal with the pandemic. Some countries in Latin America, like Ecuador, Bolivia, is now on the brink of country default. And the poor country can no longer use the lower production costs to attract the people from buying their product. In fact, the pandemic has caused the poor country to stop manufacturing in the past years. The next reality is that unequal accessibility of vaccine will cause disparity in 21 recovery. You will see that the recovery will come first with the developed country like US, Canada, and Europe, and followed by, I think, people like China, Japan, and then the less developed country in Latin America and Africa. The next one will be the pandemic also caused some new requirement. Things like internet, like information sharing become the key in the industry. However, the existing labor resources might not be well equipped with those skills required by the new industry. Therefore, there will be mismatch of human resources in terms of what will be required in the new ages. Therefore, the mismatching of human resources might deter the economy from recovering in year 2021 or after. We'd like to generally give you an idea about the general economy. The green countries are those countries which still carry the highest GDP, and they will recover first. The lighter green country like Japan will also recover. Countries in the blue are also those countries which can recover. However, if you go to Africa, Latin America, and Central Asia and East Europe, you will find that they are in the red area, whereby the recovery might be least will come later compared to the other developed country. Then we'd like to talk about the vaccination effect. A lot of people and medical experts know the fact that in order to achieve the herd immunity, between 60 to 70% of the population has to be immune from this virus. The immunization can come with the contraction of the disease or by vaccination. If the vaccination effective rate is at 95%, therefore, the vaccination only need to have 60 to 70% of the population before it achieves the herd immunity. However, if the effective rate of the vaccine gone down to 85%, then they will require the population to have 70 to 80% of the vaccination before the herd immunity will come. Some other vaccine, like the one from UK, the AstraZeneca vaccine, claim to have 62% of the effective rate. That means it will require between 100 to 110% vaccination before it will achieve the herd immunity. Worst come to worst, if the effective rate of the vaccine is only 55%, then the population has to inject maybe twice before the immunization will come. Therefore, if the effective rate of the vaccine gone down, it will cause a longer time for the whole country to achieve the herd immunity. Up to yesterday and the day before, you will notice that Israel was the country which achieved the highest vaccination rate. In fact, as of 15th of January, the vaccination rate of Israel has gone to 25%. Therefore, with 4 to 5 more weeks, Israel might achieve the vaccination rate to around 60 to 70%. According to the statistics, they might achieve the herd immunity. Israel has already agreed to Pfizer and Moderna that they are going to supply the data to them to find out how to be more effectively to control the disease. A lot of people will ask why Israel has the right for the vaccine compared to the other country. The answer is very simple. Israel has agreed to pay 3 times of the cost of the vaccination compared to the other country. The cost of per dosage from Pfizer and Moderna is around $20 per dosage. Israel is willing to pay up to $60 per dosage to grab those vaccine. Therefore, everything is a business consideration. If you look at this graph, although US and UK are the producing country, the vaccination rate is much slower than Israel and other Middle East country. Our country, Canada, so far has only got 1% vaccination rate. They said that the logistic problem in Canada caused some delay on the vaccination. According to the latest announcement from our federal government, they said that by the end of September, every Canadian citizen should have the chance to get vaccine. Well, the next few graphs are the economic situation in Canada. Canada has suffered double dip in the economy. In fact, the Canada recovery rate was better from April to September, although we suffered around 30% drop on the employment between February to April. However, after April, the economy went back up to around half of the scale. And then with the new resurgence of the COVID-19, we find that the employment rate has gone down. As a result, in the month of December, our unemployment rate has gone up from 8.5% to 8.6%. Of course, it's still better than the 38% registered in the month of April. But we lose around 65,000 jobs in the month of December, which is already quite scary because we have double dip economic development. If you compare to the various sectors, the private sector and self-employed sector are more affected by the pandemic because the self-employed sector are people working in the retail restaurants, the gym, and also working as private tutor. And also they are trying to be part-time, and they're trying to be contract staff. And whenever the economy suffers some contraction, those self-employed people will be first one to be laid off. Private sector, they do not recover as quickly as the public sector employee because they still have a lot of outstanding financial problem. And as a result, the private sector employee do not recover as well back to the February level. Public sector enjoy a handsome recovery. Actually, the situation in December in the public sector is better than what we experienced in February. Well, of course, public sector also include hospital, elderly home, teaching staff, and they require more people during the pandemic than before. Therefore, the employment rate in public sector is better. Working from home, you will see that at the start of the pandemic, more than 40%, actually 42% of people are working from home. When the economy started to open up, then the level dropped to 25% in September. When the kind of regulation start to tight again and start to ask people to stay at home, therefore the percentage of working from home worker increased back to 28% in the month of December. Talking about the general Canadian employment by industry, you will see that the navy blue one was the one as a whole. The whole country suffered a drop of 5% of employment during this period from February to December 2020. Of course, different industries suffer differently during this pandemic. Accommodation and food service industry, like retail, restaurant, suffer most. They have lost more than 25% of their employment. People like the hotel, recreation, and culture business also lost around 15% of employment. The one which was benefited from this pandemic are those people in the wholesale business, professional, scientific research, and educational services. They enjoy around 3 to 5% of the growth in the employment. Talk about the trend of employment since February 2020. You will see that accommodation and food industry suffer for more than 40% in the first 2 months of pandemic and recover gradually. Unfortunately, it suffered again in the last 3 months. Compared to the other services, you will see that the retail business has been hurt greatly during this pandemic. Another problem is about the youth employment rate. The youth employment rate suffered most during this pandemic in Canada. The youth pandemic rate for the female side dropped by 40% during the first part of the pandemic. The male youth suffered around 32% during the first 2 months. Then only recover slowly during the recovery period between April to September. You will see that young women tend to suffer more than the young male, simply because when the economy picks up, the retail sector, the delivery sector, and the other new job opening demand more labor-intensive job. Therefore, it would benefit those young male than young female. The manufacturing activity is going up, and they need more labor-intensive employee. Therefore, again, the young male is better treated than the young female. Talking about the employment picture by age group in Canada, we call the age group between 25 to 54 years of age are the core group of worker. They tend to perform better than the other group. They only suffer between 7 to 8% of the drop of employment during this period of time, compared to the late working group, which is for 55 and over group. They suffer between 8 to 9% of the unemployment during this period. Of course, their unemployment rate is similar to the core group before, but people tend to take more early retirement during pandemic than the core group member. But those people who are from 15 to 24 years of age suffer more during this pandemic. Sometimes they work as part-time before and they tend to be laid off earlier. Some of the people in this age group has not finished their study Therefore, the lack of the skill to overcome in this pandemic requirement like the internet as well as some other requirement. Therefore, the younger employment group tend to suffer more, and they have suffered between 18 to 19% of the unemployment during the same period of time. Then you will also notice the fact that during the pandemic, working from home become a norm, okay? The professional staff and the people from insurance industry, finance like bank, the real estate business, tend to have more people working from home. We found that even after April, most people stay at home to work for those two areas, like professional and finance. And more, I think more big company has already announced to the employee that even after the pandemic, they will expect to work 1 to 2 days per week at home so as to resolve the traveling requirement of the mass transit. Compared to the other industry, people like teachers, accommodation, tend to ask the people to return to work afterwards. Therefore, the working from home rate for those industry has gone down substantially in the December 2020. And also they suffer a lot of traveling. A lot of the education staff, like teacher, has to go back to school because the government believed that with more children going back to school, it would release the parent to work back to the office and help the economy to recover sooner. Then the next slide is to talk about what's the general economic forecast in 2021. This is the forecast from the general economists, okay? They predicted that there will be rapid growth in the economic activities in 2021. However, there will be substantially slower growth afterwards. I will explain to that in my last slide. And then there are massive fiscal deficit from major countries. It will translate into higher tax in the next few years. Or those developed countries will increase the quota for immigrants so that they will ask the immigrant to come to cover some of the deficit which they experienced during this pandemic. Next, the unemployment rate will improve in early 2021 because a lot of people might go back to work. However, because of mismatching of human resources, some of those new industry might not get enough people to work. Therefore, the unemployment rate will not improve out in the second half of this year, because of mismatching of the labor skill. Next one is that, well, we lose 1 full year of education. The student might have lost the ability to communicate with each other effectively. They have less physical exercise, and also the university activities will mainly conduct through the virtual classes, and that might downgrade the education quality of the university level. And people think that this 1 year loss of education might require several years to recover, and they might translate into some economic impact to the general economy. Although the vaccination might come for most of the developed countries by the third quarter of 2021, however, will be a slow recovery of international travel because some countries might experience some mutation of the virus. People might be scared to go to some exotic country because they worry about their vaccination might not protect them from those mutated virus. Therefore, you will see that international travel might not recover to the pre-pandemic level until the middle or later part of 2022. Well, because of the commodity price has gone up a lot, therefore Canadian dollar will rise first, and our trade surplus might improve in the first half of next year. However, we do not have enough manufacturing for the new product. And that's the reason why we will see a quick depreciation of Canadian dollar in the second half of next year. I will have a separate slide to go over this topic in the last part of my presentation. And also, because of the government subsidy, therefore the Australian government will paint a caring government picture to the voter. Therefore, we will predict that the federal government will call an election in 2021, vis-a-vis the formal election time in 2023. When the election is called, there will be a lot of extra subsidy coming from the federal government, which might help the economic recovery for Canada in the current year. However, this jump-starting of economy might hurt our economy in the next few years. You will find out that according to economic forecast, our 2021 GDP growth might go above 5%, which will be the highest growth in the last 10 years. However, because of the manufacturing as well as mismatching of our human resources, you can see a substantial slowdown of GDP growth in the next few years. It might go to below 2%, which is lower than our average growth in the last 10 years. Then we would like to talk about the government debt vis-a-vis the provincial debt. The red dotted line was the government debt level without the pandemic. You will see that because of the promise of the Liberal government, they said that they will gradually reduce the deficit in the next 10 years. Therefore, people think that the level of government debt in the federal level will reduce from 32% all the way down to around 25%. However, with the pandemic, the federal government has raised the debt burden to over 50%, and therefore it might take longer time for them to recover, and the debt level will remain higher than 40% in the next 10 years. The problem is with the provincial level. Provincial government do not have the right to high tax. They have to go through the federal government. Therefore, the provincial debt level will substantially go up every year until the year 2033, whereby they will exceed 50% level, which might create some more burden to the provincial government. They might require the federal government to hike the provincial HST to cover some of those debt burden of the provincial government. Talking about the wealth of individual province, before 2015, you will see that the richest province in Canada is Alberta. Because of the downturn of oil price and also very good social benefit offered in the province of Alberta, you will see that the level of fiscal capacity level per capita in the province of Alberta has gone down substantially during the last 3 to 4 years. In fact, although the oil price has gone up gradually in the later part of 2020, the Albertan will also suffer in the next few years. Their rich level will be catching up by British Columbia as well as Ontario, whereby they enjoy a more steady capacity. Therefore, there will be more rich people in BC, Ontario, and Saskatchewan than the people from Alberta. And also talking about the government debt versus the gross debt. In the past 70 years, you will see that we have the biggest federal deficit after the Second World War, and our debt has gone up beyond 25%. And then in the early 60s, our federal deficit has gradually gone down. But the trouble is that because in the early 90s, because of the overspending of the federal government in the Christian time, as well as the NDP government in Ontario in early 90s, also make the deficit of the country goes up, okay? And because of the election of the PC government in the past 20 years, and helped the federal deficit to go down gradually in the past 10 to 15 years. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, our federal deficit has gone up very quickly in the past 1 to 2 years. And this problem will last for at least another 5 years before we can see substantial gone down of our federal deficit. There is a relationship between the deficit and the Canadian dollar. You will see that the debt load, actually, the graph is a reverse graph. The lower debt row, which is on the lower debt row is on the upper part of the graph. The higher debt row is in the lower part of the graph. You will see that when our debt load is higher, our Canadian dollar has also lower. Okay, and then because of from year 2000 onward, our debt row has improved. Therefore, you will see our Canadian dollar also went up. However, when the debt load increased, just like what we have experienced in the past 2 years, you will see that the Canadian dollar also depreciate. We predict that the Canadian dollar will be depreciate further in the next few years because of our debt load, and also because that we have to have extra money to repay for the debt. Fortunately, we expect more immigrants to come to Canada. It might help the Canadian dollar in the short term. And then another aspect of the economy in the next few years is about the saving rate. Thanks to the housing market, we have more saving rate than US in the recent years because we enjoy a better saving through our housing, and people make some more money through their house. Therefore, you will see that the saving rate in US has been caught up by Canada. Hopefully, because of the higher saving rate in Canada, we will be able to survive the aftermath of the pandemic. My last slide is my personal forecast of the economy in the next 10 years. I don't think that China will surpass US in the next 10 years, which is different from most economists would think. Partly because the pandemic also requires new ideas and new products. China is very good in doing application rather than creating new ideas and new products. Therefore, in the second phase of the new product, China might help. But in the first phase of the new industry, people like US will lead the global innovation. And I think the economic growth in US and Europe might lead again for worldwide economy and back to about 3 to 5% of the GDP growth rate. Therefore, China might not surpass the US so easily. I also predict that COVID-19 will phase out in the developed country in the third quarter of 2021, when the whole population has got vaccination. The higher inflation will come, especially some countries. They want to attract the foreign investment. They will have to force to increase their interest rate. When some countries start to do so, the interest rate will go up, which will back up by the inflation rate, which will come back in the second half of next year. Manufacturing of new products will lead the recovery. Therefore, countries like Germany, US might be the first country which lead the recovery in the year 2021. Political tension might heat up in certain areas like Middle East, South China Sea, and Africa. Middle East enjoyed relatively peaceful environment in the last 20 years because the old country like Saudi Arabia has accumulated enough wealth to stabilize the political tension there. With the drop of the oil price, the Saudi Arabia might not have enough money to keep the regional safety. And also, in the South China Sea, because of the US and China tension, and also, of course, because South China Sea control 30% of the worldwide sea traffic. Therefore, this area will become another area of contention between the Western and the Eastern world. Africa will be another area for attention because the economy needs a lot of raw material to produce. Africa is very famous for their raw material. Therefore, most of the developed countries will go to Africa and create some trouble to try to capture as much raw material as possible. Again, my last point is that after pandemic, there will be new normal. People will tend not to visit each other so often. They tend to use Zoom and some more internet platform to see each other. Therefore, we will not go back to what we used to see, like the activity in the restaurant. The luxury goods will not be in high demand as before because we will have less human contact than before. Traveling might not be as popular as before. Therefore, all these kind of new consumer behavior will have new lifestyle and cause the economy to grow slower than before. Before, the Western world will enjoy between 2 to 4% of GDP growth per year. Because of these reduced consumer activities, you will see that the Western world might have less than 2% GDP growth because of this new human behavior. And that ends up my presentation today. And I'll leave it to people for some questioning, as well as some concluding remark by Eric. Any question, Edward and Eric? Do you have any remarks?
Thank you, Ian. Like last time, your information are so overwhelmed. Okay, now we need to see some of the slides again. So do you mind if you can graciously send us your PowerPoint presentation, particularly with those graphs, so that we can send to our participant? Is it possible?
Yes, I will send you the
a month
PowerPoint.
later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Because of time, could we have we will do one or two questions before we wrapped up. Does anybody have any questions for Ian?
I have a question. From the graph, it showed that Canada, our country, is going to drop out of the 10 top countries. So how does it impact our lives?
Okay, well, I can say that in terms of GDP per capita, that means per person, I think we remain as a top 5, okay? But because of the manufacturing and the innovation in Canada, is not as good as the other Western country, let's say Germany, US, and UK. Therefore, I think the recovery will not last long in Canada compared to the other developed country. I think we still rely on natural resources and immigrants, maybe housing, to maintain our economy. Therefore, I think our level will not go down quickly, but in terms of the number in the world, we might drop out from the top 10. But it's not very alarming because the GDP per capita, we are still among the top 5.
Thank you, Ian. Is there anybody else who has a question?
And also another question is we noticed that only the scientific and technology is leading our economy. All the other industry, like even we think in the past the health and healthcare industry. In the past, we think they are good because everybody need the healthcare, but now it is not. Even in the negative growth, right? So everybody will go for the computer, like in many years before, and then everybody go to the computing industry, and then will you forecast that it's imbalance, and then what will what are we, what the world is going to happen, since only the scientific and then the robotic or the internet industry is booming, and it's the only industry that people are interested in working.
That's a great question. Yes, I can see that with the new economy, there will be less personal touch. As a result, they require new skill per person. People will tend to communicate through internet, through Zoom and those platforms, rather than has any personal communication. On the other hand, computer skill will be not just computer skill. You need a lot of more analytical skill through the computer to help you to make decisions. A lot of companies now are trying to use AI, artificial intelligence, to help up their decision making. It will become a trend in the near future. And I think that the human factor of the economy will go down with the time goes by. That might affect our employment rate. And also in Canada, our utilization of new technology is not as quickly as the other Western world. Therefore, you will see that even, for example, like the situation of distributing the vaccine, we still lag behind from the other country because we are lacking the innovation in the logistic world to help to distribute those vaccines. Therefore, it's an indication that we need to greatly improve our infrastructure through our technology to be competitive in the new industry, in the new era.
Okay. Okay, I think it's time to wrap. Thank you, Ian, for your very thorough analysis of the whole economic picture in terms of what happened last year and what you think will happen next year and in the coming few years. And as some of the questions Anita asked is really shows a lot of us are very worried about what's going to happen to our future. And
it seems that the future is dim.
Yeah. And so from a Christian perspective, and all we could do is go to the Lord and seek comfort in the word of the scriptures. And I can just think of two verses about our Lord Jesus Christ said in Matthew that seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things that we need for all our daily needs will be given to us as well. And so therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring his worry about itself. And recalling the times when in the Old Testament when God promised his people in terrible shape in exile, that he said, "For I know the plans I have for you, plan to prosper you and not to harm you, plan to give you a hope and a future." And I think we at this time of so much uncertainty and so many people are suffering, we need to go to the Lord to seek his hope and his future. And in the meantime, what we need to do is probably to care for the people around us. And as Ian and Alice says, a lot of youth unemployment situation. I know a lot of the senior people are suffering, maybe not as much economically, but socially, emotionally, mental health-wise, they're suffering a lot. So maybe there are things that we could do to help. So once again, we want to give you thanks for Ian for his wonderful work from us in terms of his knowledge and his insight into the future. And I encourage everyone to take a grab of his video to listen to it again and to check his PowerPoint when Edward has a chance to upload it, and as well as go to the scripture to find our hope. And so let's end with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for all the work that Ian has done to present his thoughts on the economy that is facing us. And Lord, there's so many uncertainties and so many people are hurting. And so Lord, we just we just live up our future, our hope into your hands. And we know in the Bible that you have a wonderful plan for us. And so it is with that promise, with those promises, that we rest in you, that we find peace, we find comfort, we found joy in you. Thank you once again for this time, and we ask that you bless Ian and as he continue to work in his profession, and bless everyone here attending this afternoon with your grace and with your peace. In Jesus' only name we pray. Amen. All right, thank you.
One more remark I want to
Thank
make
you.
is about
Okay, yeah, sure.
Actually, if you think about it, those three countries which successfully invent the vaccine are Germany, US, and UK. The three countries which still claim Jesus as their savior. Okay. God blessing. It's God.
Yeah.
The innovation and the idea for those scientists in those three countries to invent a successful vaccine for the world. You will see that God is really behind the whole scene.
Yeah.
And try to lead us back to normal afterwards.
Yeah. Yep. Well, so well spoken.
Thank God.
Yeah, very good, Royce.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll hope to see you again.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Okay,
take care.
take care. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.